นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมาสามิ
Although the teachings of the Buddha are great in number, the tradition is that there are 84,000 Dhamma teachings. Fortunately, they can be condensed or summarized in a number of ways. Perhaps the most basic way is that represented in the famous short verse on the abandoning of all evil or all unwholesome dhammas and the development of all wholesome dhammas and the purification of the mind. This can seem a little prosaic, dull sometimes when compared with some of the more exotic or esoteric teachings that are available these days, even in books on general sale in bookstores. But it is my conviction, at least, that these very basic kinds of teachings or concepts, if you will, are contain within themselves great profundity. There are things that you can never transcend short of arahantship. These are the things which provide the framework for your life in Dhamma practice. So, not looking at it necessarily in terms of how many hours a day we're sitting or how many hours a day we're walking. I mean, those are certainly indications of our commitment to formal practice. But in the end, right effort is this effort to abandon the unwholesome which has arisen, protect the mind from unwholesome dhammas which have not yet arisen, to bring into being wholesome dhammas which have not yet arisen, and to look after and to cultivate and to bring to fruition the wholesome dhammas which have arisen already. That is the essence of effort, and that effort is independent of our physical posture, independent of what we're doing, whether we're sweeping leaves or washing bowls or even engaged in conversation. Whatever we're doing it out of volition. Kamma is being created, and our responsibility is to prevent unwholesome dhammas from arising or protecting the mind, and abandoning any that should arise in the course of fulfilling various duties or the various practices which we have taken on. Also to bring into play the positive forces and to develop those that have. So here you can see that mindfulness is a little bit more, or sati and sampajanya is a little bit more complex than is sometimes supposed. It's not merely awareness, it's recollecting whatever needs to be or recollected at a particular moment in a particular situation. And it's the ability to bring to mind the particular Dhamma teachings which are most appropriate in that right effort of abandoning, restraining, bringing into being, developing, or most simply abandoning and developing. So having listened to the teachings, read the teachings, discussed the teachings, we take them to heart. And when we take them to heart, then we can bring them to mind, moment by moment. And the development of sati is seen in how swift the relevant information, if you like, comes to mind. The time of a particular challenge or particular problem arising or whatever. It's remembering what you need to remember, being able to bring it to mind and bear it in mind so that it affects how you act, how you speak, how you use the thinking process, how you deal with moods and emotions arising and passing away in your mind. So this is the foundation for our life as monks, as monastics, as renunciants. We take sati or mindfulness, clear comprehension, as our foundation. This is said to be the balancing faculty. To say when mindfulness has been cultivated in the correct way, then it acts as a catalyst for other wholesome karmas and for the whole right effort that we're talking about, and at the same time it balances the heart and the mind, or the heart and the brain, if you like. It tempers the emotional thrust of faith with the coolness and circumspection of wisdom. It's the critical faculty used in a wise way. The critical faculty itself, if it's not directed by faith, then it can just become thinking and intellectuality. So faith is that which directs the critical mind. The ability to hold these two dhammas, the faith and the wisdom or the investigative faculty, in balance, is performed by sati. Similarly, the the effort, the willpower, the striving, which is necessary, is balanced by the calmness and the tranquility of samadhi. So if the tranquility exceeds effort, then it's very easy for it to become sluggish and to lose its vitality. So there are various Dhammas, various qualities which we need to employ in our practice, and that which ensures that these various qualities are developed in harmony is sati, is mindfulness. So it is on one level this awareness of posture, for instance, awareness of how we sit, our posture in the sitting, both in sitting comfortably and times of relaxing, our posture in times of formal meditation, this knowing of how we're sitting, knowing when we change our posture, knowing when we stretch or bend our limbs, arms, our legs, knowing when we stretch out to take a cup or to put the cup down, when we get up or sit down, and when we lift our arms up, or when we put them down, or when we take up our sitting cloth and fold it or unfold it. This awareness grounds us in the present moment. We simplify our lives very much living in the monastery. And this enables us to develop mindfulness with the very few things that we use on a regular basis. So this effort to be in the present moment, which something of a slogan or even a cliche, but it's always to be remembered, isn't it, that this isn't some kind of heedless, hedonist kind of approach where don't think about the past, don't think about the future, just enjoy yourself in the present moment, because sati and sampajanya are directing us in we have a purpose, and our practice develops to the extent in which we can remember our purpose and maintain our purpose. So our purpose is what our purpose is, to understand and to penetrate the full meaning of freedom and what that might mean, which is synonymous with the cessation of dukkha, and to know that we don't yet know what these words mean, although we may use them sometimes rather glibly, but we need to remember with humility that we don't really know what that means. We don't really know what dukkha means. We don't really know what suffering means. If we did, we would be enlightened. The unenlightened state means ignorance of the meaning of dukkha, most essentially. So when we have a clear-cut goal, aim, objective, then we have the means to orient ourselves in the present moment. We are able to make judgments as to what should be pursued and what should not be pursued, because we now have an objective, that which should be pursued is obviously that which is conducive towards the attainment of the goal which we have decided upon, and that which is not to be pursued is that which obstructs our realization of our goal. So the goal is not something that you can be aware of in the present moment, is it? I mean, it's not just simply being in the present moment. It's being in the present moment, aware of whether or not your actions, your speech, your thoughts are conducive to the cessation of dukkha or not. Whether or not you are in fact delighting in or indulging in those causes and conditions which strengthen, intensify dukkha, or whether there is a shrinking away from such causes or a dispassion towards them. This is why right view and understanding is so central, because it's only when we really know what we're doing and why we're doing it and what our goal is that we can be successful in abandoning what should be abandoned and developing what should be developed. And as Ajahn Jayasaro has famously said, when asked whether you should sit for many hours a day, and he said, well, even chickens sit for many hours a day, sit on their eggs, but nothing comes of it, well, except for little chickens, but nothing in the way of samadhi and panya. And in early days of practice, we can spend many hours doing formal practice with quite frustrating results, and then the quality of the practice has to improve and can, or at least our understanding of what practice is expands. There's a kind of law of accumulating returns. We begin to see that actually a lot of things which we'd formerly thought as being obstructive to practice are surprisingly and gratifyingly actually part of it. It's just that we didn't have a quite full grasp of what it is we're trying to do. A good example, I think, not just for monastics, but for people in the world, or everybody, in other words, is patience, patient endurance. And it seems that in countries which are materially prosperous, that there comes to be an idea that somehow patient endurance is a thing of the past, or that one has a right not to have to put up with things that one doesn't like anymore, because you have money, because you live in a wealthy country, and there's and the resulting weakness and indulgence that comes about is not just because people lose the faculty of patient endurance, but because they have no faith in it. They don't see any point in it. You see, they don't have the view that patient endurance is a great gift. It's a wonderful thing to be cultivated. It's a wonderful possession. It's a noble possession of a human being. And, I think an example often give in Thai talks is of some study a couple of years ago now, comparing use of morphine by cancer patients in America with those in Hanoi in Vietnam. It turned out that the American patients were the same age group, same kind of cancer, same kind of symptoms, were using something like 10 or 20 times as much morphine as the people in Vietnam, and still complained that they weren't getting enough pain relief. Because once you feel that you're paying money and you should have the right to pain relief, and that pain is wrong, then you lose your ability to endure. You don't want to endure. Why should you? When in practice, or particularly in the forest monasteries, then particularly my generation, we just got this word patient endurance just drummed into us almost every day. I mean, just endless Dhamma talks about this subject. And apart from anything else, it became something that you aspired to. You aspired to patience. You aspired to endurance. And I mean, sometimes this went a bit too far. You get a lot of young men inspired with the idea of patient endurance, and you get competition and people trying to show off a bit and trying to prove how tough they are sometimes. But that doesn't mean that it's not correct. You can't, it's obviously unfair to criticize a teaching or an idea through the wrong grasp of it by certain people. And you can see what a revolution it can make in your practice, where you identify certain dhammas as things which are wholesome, that is, they are conducive towards freedom, they are conducive towards enlightenment, and from that coming the aspiration to develop them. You can see how your whole universe just changes, I mean, dramatically at the moment when you have as an ideal the development of the patient endurance of unpleasant sensations, physical, mental. The ability to abide with that which one doesn't like. You see, the common sense way is, well, why put up with something that you don't like? Waste of time. Go and look for something that you like. Enjoy it. Life's short. Eat, drink, and be merry between dawn and 12 o'clock. I mean, have it. Why put up with things? This is a question. Why should we put up with what we don't like? What's the point? I mean, many people say there's no point. You can get away with it. But this is why the Buddhist teaching goes against the stream. It says the point is that quality, that ability to patiently, calmly abide with the unpleasant is a wonderful jewel of the mind. And of course, as the Buddha says in the Awadapatimokkha as well, it is the supreme incinerator of defilements. So if you don't have that patient endurance in that initial onslaught of Vedana, of unpleasant sensation, then you're completely overwhelmed before the troops can get there. Before the cavalry, as the sati, can get there, you've already lost it. What you need, the initial push from defilement, is an ability just to stand firm. I mean, unless you've got really well-developed sati, that when you're caught off guard, when suddenly something, some physical pain or some very unpleasant experience arises, someone abuses you or treats you very, very badly, completely out of the blue. At that moment, sati is nowhere there, maybe. But when you've got that patient endurance, it's just to be able to bear with things. And the more you see how much grows from patient endurance, then the more faith you have in it, and the more willingness you are to put up with things. And of course, we couldn't have a better teacher of this than Ajahn Chah, and I've recounted to you many times before, I think, that when Ajahn Chah was having these incredible battles with sexual desire as a young monk, and his practice at that time was really a battle. There's no other way to talk about it, and all that kind of martial imagery that the teachers talk about, quite appropriate and apt for that time in his practice. And these very strong, obscene, erotic visions, hallucinations for 7 days or 10 days, day and night. And eventually it subsided. And I was impressed that Ajahn Chah Ajahn Pasno asked Ajahn Chah once, well, what skillful means did you use to deal with this? And this incredible kind of attack of lust and sexual desire. He said, nothing special, I just endured. And if you have patient endurance, you're fearless, aren't you? Where does fear come? Well, what is fear of? I mean, usually fear is of pain, isn't it? Fear of suffering, either physical or mental. We remember past pain and project it into the future, and we feel vulnerable towards that pain, and we feel afraid. But when you've endured through things, when you know you can stick with something, even though every part of your body is screaming out, I don't want to do this, but you do it anyway. You've been through something like that. You have just such confidence and such strength in your mind. There's one part of you who's still saying, no, I can't, I won't. But there's another part, and it's a much more reliable part. It says, well, you've done it before, haven't you? You've done it before, why can't you do it again? This is where you get this firmness in practice, and this continuity, and this ability to practice in this way that Ajahn Chah said, when you're diligent, when you feel enthusiastic, you practice, and when you feel lazy, you practice. You don't give any importance, you don't give weight to your emotional reactions, your views and opinions about it. You just do it. Once you've decided that it's worth doing, you do it. Come what may, hell or high water. And I think many people mention to me how impressed they were by the words of Ajahn Jayasaro in the Dhamma talk he gave before you went into Dawdam, when he was talking about just taking on a practice, say, like staying up all night on one prat, and then whatever comes, whether you've been superstitious kind of thing, because the wisdom comes when you decide on the practice in the first place, whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. But once you've made that decision, the die is cast, and you do it. And when I myself, I found that when I arrived in Thailand, I'd made this decision to stay here 5 years, come what may. Even if I didn't know where I was going to go, I wasn't really sure I was going to come here, and the life of a monk and just how it was going to work out for me was all very hazy. But I made this decision, and I'm just going to stick with it for 5 years. And I found it just took a weight off my mind. That it wasn't a matter of shall I stick with this or not, but it's just how shall I work with it. And found that was made it a lot easier. But when so this patience to physical discomfort, and these days we're coming back from living in a beautiful forest and silent, except for the sounds of the creatures in the bush, but without sounds of cars and aeroplanes, with no lay guests coming, idyllic kind of situation. And then coming back here, and it's so much hotter, more things to do, sounds, noises, so on. Now the wise way of practicing with this is what? How can I maintain the same level of commitment to practice here as I did there? If we think, well, how can I live the way I did at Dowdam here at Wat Nanachat? It was frustrating, isn't it? Because you can't, at least I can't. So I have too many other things to do. But at least for myself, I can see that the continuity does not lie in actually the form of my practice. Whereas at Dowdam, I didn't have very many duties, responsibilities, giving talks or anything. We do a lot of walking jongkrom and a lot of sitting. Here less so. But the continuity lies that in my right effort, my right mindfulness, right view, and it's these elements of the Eightfold Path, moment by moment. Am I acting with tanha? Is there defilement in my mind? Am I following defilement, or am I following the Dhamma? What's going on here? Am I remembering my purpose? There is this possibility to be this constant cleansing of the mind. Once we understand the whole picture of Dhamma practice, and there's 84,000 Dhamma teachings to choose from, or if we are not aware of all of them, it means that there's always some wholesome Dhamma that you can develop in every situation. I challenge anyone to think of any possible situation in your life where you cannot employ a teaching of the Buddha as a means of liberation within that. And this is the origin of the lion's roar. And Chugyam Trungpa had this great saying, this is the lion's roar, every situation is workable. Or perhaps we would qualify that as Theravada monks, we say every situation in which we keep within the bounds of the Vinaya is workable. So we are slightly more constrained than certain teachers. but the principle is there. Okay, well you're talking to somebody. Well, you can't watch your breath, and you can't be developing jhanas, can you? While you're talking to somebody. Well, okay. Well, if that was all Dhamma practice was, then yes, it's wasting your time. But Dhamma practice isn't just about that. It's Samma Samadhi is one part of the Eightfold Path. Samma Vajja is another. How to develop Samma Vajja, and how to develop the mindfulness, and everything you say is said, with clarity, saying things which are true, not only true, but they're of benefit, they're intended to be of benefit to the listener, the right time and place, aware of just how to speak to that particular person or that group of people, spoken kindly, gently. And this is a Dhamma practice. Abandoning all the, not indulging, not harboring all the little black thoughts that fly into your mind like crows, and if you grasp onto them and make something of them, before you know it, you're in a black mood. One tiny little black bird becomes a whole black sky. It's like Hitchcock's The Birds. All of a sudden, you're just covered in all these nasty thoughts, and it's come from you. You've harbored them. You've given something to them. You've given a weight and importance to them. This is what indulgence means. This is what attachment means. And what do we attach to moment by moment? Physical body. We attach to feelings, pleasant feelings, by trying to hold on to them as long as we can. We attach to unpleasant feelings by trying to get rid of them as quickly as we can. We attach to perceptions, attach to thoughts, we attach to ideas, plans, imagination. And so constantly escaping from ourselves, constantly refusing to accept responsibility for our lives, moment by moment, by taking refuge in memories, taking refuges in your ambitious plans to do this and to go there, and then I'll do this and then I'll do that, and a lot of it's very logical and reasonable, but we've missed that initial jump out of this clear, bright space of Sati Sampajanya. Why did we jump out of there in the first place? When we had to keep looking and examining ourselves to see how logical is our logic, or how pure is our logic, the motivation behind it. Ability just to endure through things. When you just steadily endure through things, you're able to see, aren't you, the insubstantiality of so much. The things that seem so real and so true, and you don't have to do anything very much. You just look at them. Don't run away. Don't turn your back on them. Don't stick your head in a book. But just gaze very calmly at them. This is the patient gaze, and they'll reveal themselves to you. If they are real, they'll become more and more clear. If they're not real, they'll start to crumble. So the way of practice is one of adapting this basic development and abandonment to the particular situation that we're in, and this is the skill and the art, the science of the practitioner of Dhamma, one who can bring the appropriate Dhamma teaching, the appropriate medicine, if you like, to bear on the particular illness or the particular problem, the particular situation which we are facing in the present moment. With this basic understanding that nothing and nobody can force us to suffer. There are situations, there are people who can do things which can hurt us physically. Now, as long as we have a body, we're vulnerable to hot and cold and physical pain and so on. Certainly, we could be kicked and beaten and abused and even stabbed and killed. No question about that. But nobody, anybody, the most evil, malicious person could make us suffer if we do not abandon the teachings of the Buddha. And this is a faith that becomes stronger and stronger as you look at your mind and learn from your mind, and you see that suffering, mental suffering, is always accompanied by some kind of craving. Whether it's a craving for some sensual pleasure, or it's the craving for things to be a certain way, or a craving for not to be a certain way, a desire for craving for people, for things to be fixed and to be the way we want them to be, and so on and so forth. And that's what you have to keep coming back to. So there is always, in every moment, some effort that can be put forward. And this teaching is the teaching of effort. Buddha called it Viriyavada. It's the Theravada. It's the Kammavada. It's the Viriyavada teaching. It's the Vibhajyavada teaching, teaching of analysis. Viriyavada, teaching of effort. Kammavada, teaching of Kamma. Theravada, teaching of the elders. So these are just a few thoughts on practice which I would like to share with you this evening. So we have enough for this evening.